Hello and welcome to Hank's Place, where you've come home to righteousness. Here's a question people have asked for ages. What is right? In other words, what ought to happen and what ought to be? The answer is quite straightforward, if you believe in God, the God of the Bible. And that is, whatever conforms to God's moral character, that's what's right. And why is whatever conforms to God's moral character right? It's right because it conforms to his moral character. He's God. What I'm saying is that God is the final standard of all righteousness and justice. There can be no standard outside of God by which we measure righteousness or justice. He himself is the final, the absolute standard. It's rather similar to the situation we encounter with respect to truth, and God being that ultimate standard of truth. Whenever Scripture confronts the question of whether God himself is righteous or not, the ultimate answer is always that we, as God's creatures, have no right to say that God is unrighteous or unjust, to question him. The creature simply cannot say that of the Creator. That's Romans 9, 20 and 21. Or take Job chapter 40, verses 2 and 8. There it says, "Will the fault finder contend with the Almighty? Let him who reproves God answer it." That's God speaking. And will you really annul my judgment? Will you condemn me that you may be justified? God speaking to Job again. In this chapter, God answers, not in terms of an explanation that would allow Job or ourselves to understand why God's actions were right, but rather in terms of a statement of God's own majesty and absolute power. God does not need to explain the righteousness of his actions to Job or us, for God is the Creator. Job and us, we're the creature. It should be a cause, however, for thanksgiving and gratitude when we realize that righteousness and omnipotence are both possessed by God. Here's why. If God were a God of perfect righteousness, but without the power to carry out that righteousness, he would not be worthy of our worship, and we would have no guarantee that justice will ultimately prevail in the universe, or for us. If, however, he were a God of unlimited power, yet without righteousness in his character, how unthinkably horrible that universe would be. There would be unrighteousness at the center of all existence, and there would be nothing anyone could do to change it. Existence would then become meaningless, and we would be driven to the most utter despair, like those Danish philosophers who denied God's existence and then concluded that there was no meaning to life. We ought therefore to continually give thanksgiving and praise to God for who he is, for all his ways are just. He's a God of faithfulness and without iniquity. Just and right is he. Again, that's Deuteronomy 32:4. Yes, my friend, today, give praise to our glorious God, our just God, and come alive.